everyone, and welcome to the CxO Real Talk Breakfast Show, where we get real with C-levels, entrepreneurs, marketers, and more. I'm Salwa, your host for this episode today, and this is actually our second episode, and I'm joined by a very special guest today, who is Cheryl Lee. So, a little bit about Cheryl Lee. She is not just a freelance writer, she is also a wordsmith. She creates and produces writing that goes straight to the heart, and she touches people with her words, but also she doesn't limit herself to just that because she is also a voice actor on the side. So truly like a woman with many talents I have here today as our guest, and I'm so happy to have you here, and I'm more excited to see what sort of insights you're going to share with us today. Cheryl, how are you? Thank you so much for coming as a guest.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Sawa. It's great to meet you.
Yeah, it's really nice to meet you. So, can you please like give us a brief introduction on,
Yeah,
who you are and what you do?
right. So, I'm Cheryl. I'm a freelance lifestyle copywriter and copywriting mentor. So, I help lifestyle brands basically not just to write their copy, but also to come up with like the storytelling aspect, the branding aspect. And one of the main reasons why I do what I do is to have them sound stunning online, but also to kind of free up their time to do more highly value added tasks so that they can focus on growing the business. And so on the mentoring aspect, I've launched a copywriting course before. I've also conducted a copywriting boot camp, as well as guest lectured a session for degree students in advertising and design. So yeah, as far as that's what I do, and the voice acting part is more so it's just voicing for this fitness app based in the States. So I'm the one that does the little countdown, and I tell the person what's the next workout. So yeah, that's basically what I do.
Wow. So like I from what I hear, like everything that you've done before, you've basically dabbled in so much things, like not just copywriting, like you don't limit yourself to like just one thing. So how exactly did you get where you are today? I'm very
Right.
curious to know your journey.
Right. So I get asked this a lot as far as like the story and like how did freelance copywriting come about. So and in order to kind of tell that story, I have to kind of bring you back a little bit, which is when I was working full time. So when I was working full time, I was working with PayPal, like fintech. And what happened was that in 2019, PayPal actually closed their office here in KL. So everybody was out of a job. So it's something like the layoffs like during the pandemic and stuff, but I experienced that like before the pandemic. And so what happened was that everybody was out of a job, everybody was looking for a plan B, and I had these ex-colleagues who were starting up their own agency at that point, and they needed somebody to do copywriting. So in our past work together, like before the fintech company, they knew that I could write, so and I think they were just kind of like, oh, needing to find somebody to fill the role. So yeah, I took that on and then handled the account. And then I realized that after some time, that I started getting my own clients. People were reaching out to me.
Wow.
And so I thought to myself, like, could this be a viable thing? Like, maybe I should just give it a go, like double down on it and see how it goes. And fast forward until now, they always say the rest is history. But since it's March, International Women's Month, right? So the rest is her story.
Wow.
Yeah.
I love that. We need to, oh my God, this needs to be in the highlights. Guys, already, we're only like 3 minutes in, and that's already like something to put in the, like, short clip highlights. I love that. So,
Thanks.
in that case, like, have you, then that means they know that you had a flair in writing.
Mhm.
So, but how did they know? So, did you have any previous or like prior experience in writing before you joined PayPal?
Ah, right. Okay. So before that, like I would say like my full-time working roles were never like writing based, but I was always given writing tasks because I think my superiors and all that, they kind of know like, I've been writing like speeches, I've been writing some releases here and there. And so like it's not part of my JD, but like obviously like sometimes they don't know who to handle. Okay, just pass to Cheryl, like she knows like what to do. So yeah, but in terms of actual like role and job, like no. Actually
So
no.
it's very recent.
Like as far as like when I got into copywriting, then that's when I started like to kind of show like my skill, as in like people started not to care so much about what was my job history like,
Okay.
as in like they're just like, oh, if you can do the job and you do it well,
Yeah.
you're nice to work with, let's get on a call and let's work together.
Oh wow. So in that case, like people got to know you, like even though it wasn't your main role, like you weren't exactly like a copywriter. You didn't start off as a copywriter as a main role.
That's right.
But then
Yeah.
people saw your flair.
It's kind of a strange journey because it's like I wasn't doing anything like comms related, although that's what I studied.
Mhm.
But somehow like the road kind of just like took me back, and then now it's where I'm heading. Yeah. So
Oh, that is so
yeah.
amazing. I'm actually really happy to hear that also,
Mm.
because I feel like I sort of had a similar path
Mhm.
previously in my current job, because for me personally, I've always had a passion for writing, but
Mm.
I never knew how to start. And
Right.
because my degree wasn't exactly focused on, like, it wasn't English literature, or it wasn't like
I
specifically
understand.
something
Yeah.
like that. But then I felt like, oh, I had almost lost all hope until
Oh.
now. Apparently, people saw me for how I could start writing and everything. But now I'm an in-house copywriter. So I feel like that journey is slightly different from, like people saw you for your work, but now you have clients and stuff, right? So
Yes.
like, how did you get there, and how did you grow your client base? I'm very curious to know.
All right. Okay. So I think I get a lot of questions about how to get clients, how to get your first client, and things
Yeah.
like that. And I think everybody gets very caught up in terms of like what is the best way or what is the way.
Mhm.
So I tell people like your first client can be just like your mom's friend who has a small business, needs somebody to write like a headline, like a small paragraph about like an about us page or something.
Mhm.
So it really can be like just anything. I wouldn't say that there's a specific way to like do something, like get clients. But for me personally, like what happened was like that ex-colleagues, they were starting. So I would consider them like maybe they weren't like the legit first client because it's like connection. But after that I got the next client was from LinkedIn. So I got a DM, and the client was just like, I'm looking for somebody who not only can write well, but like, who's going to be with me like more long term. And this client was actually somebody who was with me for quite some time. Only not too long ago, we decided to part ways because he was going a different direction.
Okay.
But it's one of those things that you kind of just say yes to, and then you figure it out along the way. That's what Richard Branson says. So you say yes first, and then you figure out how to do it. Yeah. So but for me, it was LinkedIn. Yeah.
LinkedIn. Okay, yeah, because like personally for me too, like I try to write things on LinkedIn, like like my own personal journey, like I started off. I used to be very against like posting about myself online. I mean, naturally, I grew up like an introvert. I never really put myself out there, but then I realized like if I wanted to actually build like career in writing,
That's right.
that was my closest thing to a start.
Yeah.
But then like you get DMs. Sometimes, I don't know, like sometimes I do get DMs, but then I'm like, is this a scam? Is this like, how do I tell if it's like an actual like request, or like, if this is fishy?
Okay, that's an interesting question. I would say maybe because like I've been on the platform like long enough, and okay, maybe one tip I would say, if somebody is like a genuine connection, like wants to like work with you, wants to kind of ask you like, hey, what's your availability like? I want to work with you. They will be quite straightforward. They won't really say like, how are you today? Like, I would like to ask you something. They
And they
will just
beat around the bush.
yeah. Or I guess there are multiple ways to go about it, because on LinkedIn, genuine relationships are like a main thing, in a sense that if somebody is like not genuine or too salesy, like people will really like kind of just not respond to your post. People won't like really layan lah, in that sense.
Yeah.
But I would say one tip is that people who kind of like ask things like that, how are you, and then like can you tell me more about yourself, and like more like interview kind of things. From experience, I find that those kind of like don't really lead to much. Like if somebody who's like genuinely interested, they read your profile, they roughly know that, hey, I have this job, and this person fits the bill, they would potentially say that, hey, I read that you do this, we have a project about this, like would you be interested to like talk further and things like that. So it's pretty like straightforward in that sense. And then from there, you hop on a call, get to know each other, and yeah,
see where things go, right?
That's right.
So like basically they would normally do background checks on you before like I don't know, maybe if you have a portfolio on your LinkedIn or something.
Yeah,
you
I
know.
think more or less they would kind of at least want to see your skill set, or at least like know that what you provide is actually matching to what they want.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it wouldn't be too like beating around the bush kind of style, I
Yeah.
would say.
So it's like, in that sense, it goes both ways, right? Because like they're curious to know what you can provide, and then you're also curious to know how
For
you
sure.
can be
Yeah.
of service.
Yeah, I always tell like, you know, aspiring writers or like writers who are just starting out, I say that it's very important that it's a two-way thing. It's
Yeah.
not so much that you just like want to land the job like to get paid, but you have to understand that they got to work to your terms also.
Yeah,
As in,
that's true.
because like while they're not paying like EPF and CxO and things like that, like as a freelancer, you kind of need to negotiate and set like clear boundaries as far as like your timing, what time you can contact me, what time you cannot contact me, what are the expectations of the deliverables and things like that. So it's always good to like during that call, you kind of hash it out, you know, you kind of let them know these are my terms, and like, you know, in not like a braggy kind of way lah, you know.
Yeah.
You just want to say that like this is what I can provide, you know, under these sort of circumstances. Like, does that sound good to you? Or like, you know, there's always room for like negotiation and like talking about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For like, let's say, because I have been considering like, maybe dabbling in freelancing a little bit, like,
Yes.
maybe on the side or something.
Yeah.
But like, it's a very interesting thing for you to bring up about like terms and negotiations. But for a like first timer like me, I don't necessarily know. I mean, especially because I have a 9 to 5, for example,
Understand.
and then like, how far do I know, or should I just go for it and then decide later what my terms are, or should I already know what kind of terms I will need to like put down?
I would say like have some non-negotiables, as in like you don't want people like bugging you like after midnight and things like that, or at night, you know. So sort of like the things that you are not okay with, or like the kind of guidelines that you would want clients to work within, you know, that's something that you can just like, you kind of pen it out and just like, oh, make like 2 or 3 things. And I think it should be things that are fairly reasonable, like when the client reads it, like, you know, they kind of get it. They're not going to be like, oh, why this freelancer so, you know, difficult to work with or something like that.
Okay.
Yeah, so I would say it's good to have the guidelines also, not just for them but for yourself. As far as like you are letting, I mean, you're kind of in a weird way like telling yourself that like, hey, you know, I'm embarking on this journey, but there's like certain things that I'm not willing to kind of just like go with the client because they're the one paying me, you know. So we need to kind of establish those things, because if we don't, it's very likely that they're going to be the one to kind of set those boundaries for you, and their boundaries are not going to be something that's so favorable to you.
Yeah.
So we got to be like smart about it.
Yeah. So in that case, like, that's when you discover like, oh, this client is difficult or something, because like at least you know what your non-negotiables are, right?
Yeah, okay. Maybe another tip is that like whenever I get a new client, I always try to let them know that like, hey, let's try this out on a trial basis. So like
Okay.
I'll say like, maybe let's try like 3 months. Okay,
Okay.
because like I say like 1 month is too short, 2 months like not long enough. So you want like a comfortable period of time where you feel that like there's enough time to gauge like whether they are a good fit for you or not, and whether you're a good fit for them. So I think that's really important. So you kind of go on that trial, and then after the end of the 3 months, you kind of like review over like, oh, so how have things been for you? You know, are my deliverables like, you know, on par with what you expected? And then, you know, it's a very like wholesome kind of a partnership that way, you know. So and if things don't work out after 3 months, then like thank you, and like, you know, let's move on, and all the best to you. Yeah.
Oh, that's a very interesting way to like view it also, because I never really thought about having like a time period for you to like fully assess something,
like free trial like that. I mean, not free lah, obviously, but you know,
it's like a probationary period.
That's right. Yeah, just to kind of gauge, because like especially for longer partnerships, you want to be clear about like the kind of people that you're working with. You want to know their style. You want to be sure about the people that you're working with, as far as you know, their nature, like, you know, whether they're difficult, whether they are more chill, things like that. So that's things you can only figure out when you're like working with them.
Yeah, that's true. And that goes that also goes with like human relationships, and
For
just
sure.
like in general, right?
For sure. I would say because ultimately, freelancing, I mean, a lot of it has to do with relationships.
Mm.
So like human to human, and you know how people say like AI, artificial intelligence, but HI, human intelligence is also there. Yeah. So it's really important as far as like you mentioned relationships, right?
Mm-mm.
Because you're dealing with like clients, then they are dealing with you potentially. What if they find your work good, but and they may want to refer you, you know? So like you need to kind of like think about these things as far as being a not just a pleasant person to work with, but obviously a quality person to work with. They know
Yeah.
that you can do the work, you're easy to work with, minimal hand holding,
Mm.
yeah, things like that.
Oh, that's really good. Oh, I love how you brought up human intelligence. That's something that's very close to my heart also. And like, you know what? And the fact that you mentioned artificial intelligence, you know how like there are many new things in technology.
Oh, yes, so
you know,
many.
so many now. Like there are so many tools that can help you with like copywriting and stuff. I personally also use. I'm pretty sure everyone knows now. It's the really in thing. It's ChatGPT. Yeah. So like, I think it's very useful. But for me personally, I feel like I'm not using it to my full advantage. Like,
Okay, I
yeah.
get what you mean.
Huh.
And I would say a lot of people aren't, or not yet, at least, because ChatGPT is something relatively new, and ChatGPT 4 just launched. So ultimately people are still in the phase of um working this beast of a machine, you know, as it has like such massive potential. People are just finding out like, okay, how can I make the most out of it? How can I optimize it in the way that I want, right? And one new line, I would say relatively new line of work, is called prompt engineering. It's something that people haven't, like, not everybody has really jumped on the bandwagon yet, but I oddly enough, I learned this from my neighbor. My neighbor is in this line of work, and then he's relatively new to the building, so I just got to know him, and then he said like, oh, copywriting, like ChatGPT. I say like, yes. And basically what happened was he was telling me about prompt engineering, and what that is people who kind of craft the prompts for AI. So because ultimately, I mean, there's a lot of debate about like AI, like yay or nay kind of a thing. But ultimately, AI is as strong as the prompts you feed it.
Yes.
Then if you are somebody who knows how to craft the kind of prompts that will like generate that kind of result, then it's great. You know?
Yes.
But otherwise, if you're just gonna say, write me a social media caption about skincare, you know, and that's it.
Yeah.
It's too like the AI needs you to like feed data.
Yes.
And so if you can't do that, or if you can't do it in a way that understands that like makes it work, then it doesn't work. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So you do need some creativity, or like, you know, you need to still feed it, like even though it's a tool that can really help you, like you need to know what exactly you want.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So like piggybacking off of like prompt engineering, how okay, then because we were talking about how to fully like utilize, you know, ChatGPT, how do you personally like use that in your own copywriting thing?
Right. Okay. So as of now, like I use ChatGPT to do a lot of like foundation brainstorming kind of work, things that like you know, you would normally like you need to find a quiet corner, and then you're like, okay, like I need to brainstorm like 5 ideas about this. And when ChatGPT can kind of do that for you, you know, so I utilize it in that way, in that sense. I don't really make ChatGPT write for me, or not at this point in time.
Okay.
But yeah, I foresee, I mean, like I use it as a very like a helpful assistant. You know, the assistant's gonna like give me some, churn out some ideas, you know, for me to kind of like start with, and then I will like kind of fine tune it along the way. The interesting thing about AI is that like ChatGPT, like when you ask it to do something, and you want to kind of like add on to that, you know, like okay, make it suitable for 6-year-olds to understand.
Yeah.
You can like refine it even more. So I think that's one way to kind of like optimize, to leverage, like, you know, the power of ChatGPT.
Yeah.
You know, and from there, like another way, and this is something that I learned, like, you know, of like experts who are like really breaking down ChatGPT and like as far as prompt engineering goes. And so one thing they say about when you want to write a prompt, when you want to craft a prompt, is about giving ChatGPT a role. So you need to say like, you are a software engineer with 6 years experience in IT.
Okay.
Like full stop.
Yeah.
Like you give it a role, right? And then after that, you said that please come up with a report about blah blah blah. I mean the task you want it to do, right?
Yeah.
And one very key word, like actually it's 3 words, but it's a key tip, is to especially if you want things broken down, like you use this word which is step by step. Yeah. So you kind of like tell it like, hey, you are this persona, and then I want you to do this for me. And this is basically like I want it to be written in a way that is easily digestible. So like like step by step. And I think that person who was doing the tutorial, basically they showed like a difference between like a version where it's that is not crafted this way with like the role and things like that, and then and with, so you can kind of see the output is really quite different as far as the outcome is.
It's actually like super powerful. Like
It is.
if you really know how to use it.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I don't know, have you heard, but like not too long ago, there have been these like scams going around about people using AI, and about like I heard the one on the radio about somebody saying to their grandma like they need money or something like that, and then the grandma like went to different banks and withdraw money, and
yeah.
so
Scams.
while it's like fire, like there's the benefits and the pros and cons, so similarly it's a very powerful thing. It's just in the hands of the type of people, then you kind of know like what kind of outcome like happens as far as that goes.
So like it is a responsibility to like for anyone who uses the tool,
for sure,
because anything good or bad, or like not I feel like personally everything is neutral. The person who decides to use it can make it either good or bad,
Yep.
Yeah.
Agreed.
In anything, because ChatGPT is like extremely powerful. It's not just for copywriting, it's
That's
for
right.
so many other things.
Correct.
Yeah. So a very interesting point that you mentioned was like, for me also, I use it the same way you do, which is like it gives me a rough draft that I can work on.
Yeah.
Like, I don't like, it cuts down my thinking time a little bit, because the rough draft is always the hardest part. The brainstorming takes so much time.
It does.
And like, I love how I can actually, like, this thing just like splurts it out for me, and then I can just start writing or like fine tuning it in that way. And that's how, for me, like, people keep on saying, oh, AI is going to replace copywriters. In that sense, like, no, I feel like it can help. It assists, but it's not going to replace you because it doesn't have the human experience,
And maybe just to add on to that, I came across a quote not too long ago where it says, AI won't replace you. A person using AI is going to replace you.
Yes.
Right? So, and like personally in my freelancing journey, it's the 4th year now, so I would say one thing that really stuck with me, or something that I really wholeheartedly believe in, is that Leonardo da Vinci says that learning never exhausts the mind. So when new things like AI, things like that come on board, like come about, and it's bombarding us everywhere, we got to be like open about it. We got to be open to learning, because it's something new. It's now, it's, you're going to be left behind if you don't.
Exactly.
So it's really important to adopt that kind of a mindset, that you are so just willing to like absorb, like, whatever that's out there, obviously like the good parts,
Yes.
and from there you kind of use it to your advantage, or use it, to make your life more productive, make your life more efficient. So it's like you mentioned, there's no good or bad, so it's just how you go about using it.
And I feel like because a lot of people are very resistant to change, and they see like new things. People are like, what is this? This is so foreign to me. They will like stop first, because that was also like my initial reaction when right after, like, I was fresh out of college, and then I was like, oh, LinkedIn is like, they pushed LinkedIn on me, and I'm like, no, I don't want to put myself out there, but like you sort of have to, if you want to like
Yeah.
maybe like survive, or
That's right.
at that time I wanted to try freelance, but I never got around to it, but also yeah, I mean, I feel like resources are out there, you just have to use it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And to kind of like be brave about it, I would say.
Yes.
Because one thing that like this thought came to me, but I think some other people do say it, is that also like if you don't talk about what you're doing, who is? Who's going to
Exactly.
talk about you doing what you're doing if you don't,
Exactly.
right? So as much as it is like sometimes like, oh, it's like cringe to talk about like what I'm doing and what I'm about,
Yeah.
you kind of have to see like where are my audience are, as in like the people who potentially need my services, where are they? And to kind of put yourself in a spot that's gonna be where they are, so that they can look for you, and it's going to benefit them when they, partner with you, because you're good at what you do.
Yeah.
So it's something I totally get what you mean, in a sense that like, oh, the hesitance and the resistance to go about it. But I realized that along the way, I kind of reap more benefits.
Yeah.
Then like once I realized I overcome that shyness,
Yeah.
I realized that, hey, I'm connecting with like people that I normally wouldn't,
Yeah.
that I have the opportunity now because of a platform. And then like you're learning so many strong and good things like from them, like you just find one morning and like, you scroll through LinkedIn, you'll be surprised at the amount of like value and the amount of things that people are just sharing for free.
That is exactly true.
So as opposed to like, oh, I got to pay like $1,000 for a course, so you log on, and the important thing I always tell people about LinkedIn is not enough to just have a profile, obviously. Like you kind of need to play the game in that sense. Like you need to be active, you need to engage, you need to be present.
Yep.
And while I understand it's not everybody's cup of tea, but I always tell people, look at it as a form of investment. You're investing your time,
Yes.
you're investing your creativity, energy to come up with posts and like engage with people. But you will see you will reap the benefits, you will see the results. Whether or not it comes like tomorrow or like couple days, couple weeks, more or less, like you will have that kind of opportunity. Because for me personally, LinkedIn has brought in like more than 50% of my clients, I would say. Yeah, because and I get that like international reach because of LinkedIn, so which is amazing. It's not something I would have been able to do like by myself, because like to the world, I'm just like Cheryl Lee, like who knows Cheryl Lee, something like that. But yeah, it gives us that kind of leverage, and so I always, when I tell people about LinkedIn, like sometimes I be a little bit careful too. I think to myself, is this person ready to kind of receive like what I'm about to share with them? And sometimes people aren't, and if they aren't, then like, oh, okay, well, I just share what I did, like do with it what you will. But maybe it's better use of my time to be like talking to somebody who's like interested and want to like see how can it work for me. And because I always feel that if something works for a person, it's about finding those bits that makes sense to be kind of, that you can duplicate for someone else. So yeah, I find, so that's how it's been working for me.
Oh yeah. So like because I also started off with like I was very resistant to LinkedIn. Like, I didn't want to put myself out there. Like you mentioned, like it's not everyone's cup of tea.
Yeah.
Which is like it's kind of enlightening to hear from someone that this isn't something that everyone does. Despite my resistance, I still sort of like did it, even though in the early stages I kind of didn't like I didn't like the way it started, because I used to be very low key.
Right.
I never really like showed myself off to the world,
Yeah.
So I felt like, to an extent, it feels like, am I being pretentious? Am I showing myself off?
Like, are you not you
Yes.
for doing it?
Yes, exactly. I feel like, am I losing my identity by like showing these things, showing off? But like, it's just a way, like it's a platform again. Like just like ChatGPT, it's like it's a platform. It's not good or bad. It's just how you utilize it.
That's right.
Yeah. And
how do you feel about it now?
How do I feel? Actually, yes, this is what I wanted to mention. it's like reading the morning paper now.
Okay,
Like
okay.
every time I come into work, the first thing I do is like I will open LinkedIn, like I'll check my notifications, etc., things like that. I'm still building up like an audience that will start to
Yeah.
engage. But I feel like just people in general, my team, they're very
Yeah.
supportive of me. Like we're all connected on LinkedIn, and then whenever I post something, they'll like support it, they'll comment, things like that, and it
wonderful.
actually feels really good,
Yeah.
yeah, because people are now seeing me not just for what I can do, but sometimes I post things that like what I genuinely feel about
Yeah.
certain issues and
Yeah.
things like that.
Mhm,
So you don't limit yourself, and I feel
Yeah.
like I think you can also attest to this. People will have like a more emotional connection with you, like a more human connection when you post things on LinkedIn, because people are seeing you for you,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, and I think people often have this misrepresentation or like this wrong idea of LinkedIn whereby, oh, it's just about business and you've changed the job, so now you're working at so and so company. So I always tell people that okay, like that's like on the surface, that's very surface stuff.
Mm-mm.
You know, LinkedIn is a platform where people also share about their life, like real things that happen to them. It's like some, I mean, there's a debate like whether like how much is too much kind of a thing. But ultimately, if there's something to learn from it, there's a takeaway from it,
Yeah.
I don't feel that it should be not shared.
Yeah.
And personally, one of the most personal posts that I've written about before was like now I live on my own, but previously when I was living with my parents, one of my aunts, she stays with them, and she actually passed away in their home, the family home.
Sorry.
And what happened was that I was helping my family, like with the situation when it happened. And I thought to myself, like, how many young people actually know like what to do if something like this happens? And I realized that I was like hesitant, like, oh my God, this is like about death. Like, should I share about this? But um it was one of the posts that actually like did I mean, like, it was not the best, but I mean, it, like, people were thanking me for like, appreciate the advice, or like, the people were just like, I mean, they're sending their condolences, but as well as like they say that like, oh, I didn't know about this, thank you.
Yeah.
Because this is not something on a date, like, it won't come up in your casual conversations.
Yeah.
So but because like it was something that I faced, and I felt that like whether or not it's like comfortable to hear, like there's something that people can get out of it. And
Yeah.
I find that that's really important, as far as if there's something behind it, although the story is not as flowery and pretty, like yeah, we can share it, like,
Yeah.
totally.
Yeah. And I feel like people, like, there is so much that is bad that is happening in the world, for one thing. And
Yeah.
also, I feel like people are losing touch with the human experience because everything is so fabricated.
Yeah,
Everything is
that's right.
so good on LinkedIn. Everything is polished, Sometimes, like, I really like, personally reading or, like, seeing things that are, like, genuinely happening with people. Like, you can tell I have a very strong, like, liking or, like, affinity for things that are very human.
Right.
But despite that, to see someone, like, especially in writing, sometimes, okay, this is like a personal opinion that I have.
Okay.
I have been ruminating over this, and I talked to my copywriter friend in my team also about how sometimes I feel like we see things in a different lens, because we are writers. Have you ever thought of that? Like, you were born with this flair for writing, and you go through stuff, and you see things in a very different light because you are born to write about it. Have you ever thought of that? Like, sometimes it makes me rethink my whole life purpose.
Wow.
I'm passionate
Very
about it.
philosophical coming out. um I guess to an extent, yes. As in, like, you know how sometimes people say that, like, oh, have you ever felt like you're just different, like, and nobody really kind of gets you,
Yeah.
kind of thing. And yeah, I guess I do resonate with, what you just mentioned. Like, as far as like, because we can evoke emotion, we can bring about change
Yeah.
just by the thing that we write. And the process that we go through it is such a personal and intimate kind of a process, I would
Yeah.
say. So it definitely makes us valuable in that sense, right? Because AI is great, but actually not too long ago, I wrote a post about that as well. And I made sure to sound that I'm not pro AI nor am I anti AI. I'm just saying like what I feel about it.
Yeah.
And ultimately, AI has not reached, or I don't know if it will reach that point whereby it has that raw, real
Yes.
human side
Mm-mm.
to it. And there's one copywriter on LinkedIn. He wrote a brilliant post about like he asked ChatGPT to write what how does it feel like to be a father of a newborn, to be a father for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
And ChatGPT came out with like its results, and obviously it's very cold, as in like it's very like it's a wonderful feeling, and like now I have my son, blah blah blah. And he came up with his version, and the disparity is like night and day, seriously.
Yes.
So that's something I think AI, we don't know whether like
Yeah.
it will get to that point where like they kind of like, yeah, I know humans emotions,
Oh my
but
goodness.
yeah, I think as of now, like we're still very valuable,
Mm-hmm.
as,
Yeah.
as writers.
Yeah. We can never run away from that. I feel like until we never know. I
Yeah.
feel like it will be the end of the world if AI will catch up with like human emotion. I always feel like I actually like a few years back I even had like a talk with one of my friends. I was like, if robots understood human emotion, we will all die.
Yeah, we're doomed.
We are
guys.
doomed. It will be the end of the world.
I get what you mean.
Yeah. And I totally understand about like you writing can evoke emotion,
That's
right?
right.
And that's something we strive to do in copywriting as well.
Yes. That's
And that is a flair that I feel like, even though I've only been in the copywriting industry, an in-house copywriter basically for only a year, and I still feel like I have such a long way to go, to get there. And I wish I just knew. I wish there was just like one answer.
Ah.
Sometimes like I get to a point where I'm like, can I just know the one thing that I can do?
I think I get that feeling, as in like as far as like, oh, like only 1 year in, like, but you hope to like, let's just like learn everything and get everything right now. I would say it's like it's definitely an unending process, I will say, because you you can get inspiration from anything,
Yeah.
anywhere, anyone, and so from there, that kind of shapes like how you want to like word something, um how you want to describe something. And one thing I like to do, like just as a random exercise, is I would go to a mall.
Okay.
I'll go to a mall. I'll look at all the different ads around. I'll look at like what are they putting in the storefront? What are they putting like on the banners and things like that. And I would ask myself, does this speak to me? Let's say if I'm the target audience, like even if it's like a product like for men's, if I'm a guy, and then I would say like, does this speak to me? And if it doesn't, then in my mind I'll say, okay, how would I write it? It's a little exercise that I tell people to do. It's a sort of like you're studying ads, and if something is good, you ask yourself why. What part of it is good? Why is it good? If it's not good, why is it not good? Which part is not good? And you kind of like break that down, and you get a lot of like insightful knowledge and info, basically, right? And so it's really, it's kind of fun to do as well. You just go and walk around, and like sometimes even your DOH, your digital out of home advertising, so you just go and see the ads, what are people like putting out, and kind of think about what was their thought process when crafting this. Like what were they thinking when when probably the CD said, okay, like let's go with this line, so things like that. Yeah, there's a lot of ways to kind of like not get ahead of yourself, I would say. Understand that it's something that people with many years experience who still like find they're learning every day. So it's a matter of just where you are right now, and how can you be better than what you last wrote? You know, how, like, based on whatever brief, how can you channel it, like really speak to the audience? How can you really like bring out that offer? How can you make it compelling enough? Yeah, I mean, that's what it means to be a copywriter.
So like, as I was saying, I'm personally an in-house copywriter, right? Like I mentioned before, but I've always been curious as to how it's like to actually write in like different areas, because I really enjoy creative writing also. What has it been like for you? Like, you do, like, I feel like you do a bunch of things, right? Would you say?
Yeah, I mean, like, I would say like I have a niche, right? So mainly lifestyle businesses and all and brands, like, they tend to come to me. So that it wasn't my intention to kind of like make that my niche, but based on like the needs, and I don't know, maybe sometimes people name drop, and so I kind of like, oh, there seems to be like a significant number of people in this kind of business that are looking for my services, so let's make that what I do, but as far as like the different types of maybe because I'm highlighting different products or different services,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, so there is some variety, I would say, in the things that I write, but overall I would say like I get to experience like a variety of things, but it's also within that niche, right? So I've had clients, like, let's say in activewear. I've had clients in like wellness kind of brand, or there's one which is in fashion e-commerce, so it's a little bit different, but it's also same in that
Yeah.
sense. So it's all about finding out more about like the brand voice, and you kind of really catering to that, because not every brand is going to serve the same audience, right?
Yeah.
So let's say even if it's like a woman brand and a woman brand, right? But what the demographics, the target, like, like, are these like your working ladies already, or you're just your Gen Zs, like, so different kind of products, you will have sort of like, you will cater the tone of voice to kind of match like the kind of, you will speak their language, if that makes sense. So you will kind of want to make sure that it resonates with the person who's reading it.
Yeah.
And so in that sense, yeah, that is a fair bit of a variety in terms of what I write. Yeah.
So you would say like it does help to have a niche, does it?
Okay, so this is like I wouldn't say like a touchy subject, but it
Okay.
sometimes it comes up, and there are two school of thought basically. So one school of thought will say like, yes, a niche is necessary if you want to grow, if you want to scale, if you want to specialize in something. And the other one, opposite, like they will say like, no, you don't need a niche, you just write for anything and everything. And like this is something I personally I have a stance towards, as in like I see the importance of a niche, like as in like if you're starting out like maybe 1 year 2 years and like you're not very sure, like that's totally fine, because it happens to everybody, like because you're getting different kind of jobs and you're not so sure like which one really speaks to you, or which one people like really like they want you for it, kind of a thing. Yeah. So I would say in if you're like starting out first couple of years and you're not sure, that like that's totally fine. But in the long run, it kind of will benefit you to have a niche. And this is why, and somebody gave me this example, and I've been using this example ever since. So like a GP and a surgeon,
Okay.
like who gets paid more? Surgeon, right? Because a surgeon specializes in a certain kind of operation, and like surgical procedure that like a GP wouldn't be able to do, because a GP services everybody, and so it's kind of that in that sense. When you specialize in something, you do it enough to a point where you get good at it. You get really good at it. So I'm not saying that copywriters who don't have a niche and they write everything, that they're not good, but it's harder to be good at multiple things than be good at one thing. So sometimes people, they say like, oh, that's my thing, so as in like if you are focused in a particular niche to a certain point, then you'll be able to say like, hey, that's my thing. You're the copywriter I go to for blah blah blah, you know. So
Okay.
it's this is my take on it, you know. But I do see the benefit of kind of niching down that way, because after some time, like you will get like the qualified leads. And what I mean by this is, as in, like, you won't get like finance companies like reaching out to me, or like you know, motivation reaching out to me. Like, you won't get like so like sparse kind of
Yeah.
leads coming in. So people will kind of filter, because they know that, like, hey, this is what you want to this is what you do. So, you know, we'll only go to you if we have something that's along that lines, you know. So I think it benefits the client, and it benefits like the copywriter as well.
Would you say because although I'm kind of torn between these two.
Okay,
I still have yet to form an opinion about it,
okay,
you know.
got it.
But also, like, since would you say that you are sort of narrowing down the opportunities that you may be able to receive if you were to be more free, you know, to
Okay.
not have a niche?
Right. I think that's quite a common thing that people will kind of first think about when it's like, if you do a variety of things, or like you do everything, then like you're getting clients here, there, everywhere.
Yeah.
But the possibility and the probability of you like overworking, and like, let's say you like I guess it depends on what kind of person you are. If you're somebody like you find it fun, or you find the thrill of like writing like a whole bunch of stuff, like one day you're writing for like real estate, one day you're writing for like engineering, you know, like a bunch of stuff, then like I mean, I don't see it's not wrong. It's just a matter of I guess it's how does one want to move forward or progress, right? So like some people, they feel that like, yeah, I have the capacity to write for all these different niches, for all these different clients and industries, and that's why they go about it, and maybe that's fulfilling to them.
Yeah.
You know. But I find that when you go this way a lot, you won't be able to go this way a lot.
Yeah, I do see it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you can't like do if you don't have much depth, as in like you're not giving yourself the opportunity to kind of like be an expert about like one particular field, or if because when you do so many, you're only one person, you're gonna stretch yourself thin, and it's not gonna be as easy to like specialize in something. And by the time, like, let's say if you realize like, oh, I'm getting like a lot of this work, and like some of them like maybe I need to do a lot of research on, or maybe some don't fit my interest, you know. Because personally, how I got to the point of niching was, I realized people were reaching out to me for work that I did not necessarily enjoy. And then from there I kind of like, well, I don't have to say yes in the beginning, right? You know, I could like kind of make a list for myself that, oh, I only want clients like this in this kind of industry. And it's not being like bossy or anything. It's about like, you know, there's somebody who's going to service that kind of client, but it's just not me.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's not necessarily like a missed opportunity or anything.
No, I would say it's very individual, you know,
Yeah.
because I know some people who will really stand up for their rights, and like, no niche. Niche is limiting yourself, and you know. So it's like, okay, you like chocolate, I like ice cream, you know, that kind of
yeah.
thing. And so we kind of we just acknowledge that there are different things, and people
Yeah.
like different things,
Yeah.
and they go about it differently.
Neither is bad. You
Oh,
know,
yeah.
that is your thing. This is my thing.
Exactly.
You know,
exactly.
yeah. I can see how, like, you know, people can be very torn on the subject. You know, yeah. It's really up to the individual, like what they want to do or anything. And I love how you visualized it in like, if you try different things, it's this way. But then if you specialize in something, you go deeper. Yeah. I really like how you can see it. You know, so it depends on how you want to grow as a person, you know, like what interests you better, because some people I know really like to dabble in different topics, you know, things like that. So that's a very interesting insight. So in that case, like, does niching also help you? How do you like flow your creativity? Like, how does your creativity flow while you have like a niche, you know? Despite that, like, even though you did mention that within your own niche, there
Mhm.
are like different clients, and
Yeah.
there are different writing styles,
Correct.
so
Yeah.
like there is room
Yeah.
for you to like try different things, within the same thing. So like, how
Mhm.
would you say, how do you keep your creativity flowing,
Mhm.
you know?
I think like how I mentioned just now, like you can get inspired, like or you can get inspiration from anywhere, anything, anyone.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I firmly believe that because sometimes like I can look at the ground and feel like inspired,
Mm.
like oh just the way the rocks are kind of laid out or something like that. So basically I would say um to get creative, right, you kind of need to fill your tank. Okay,
Mm.
so view it this way, right? You have your creativity tank, and on days when you feel like you're not inspired at all, like or this term like I learned from a song is tired and uninspired.
Mm-hmm.
When you feel tired and uninspired, you kind of just need to not I think sometimes we are very like critical in ourselves that like I need to get inspired now. I need to get inspired now. I
Yeah.
need to find inspiration.
Mm-mm.
Like we're trying to make it happen.
Yeah.
Right? And sometimes things like I don't know, there's just this weird thing that it will just work against us. Whatever that we're trying to do, like it will work against us in that sense. Like the more
Yeah.
you try to like I need creativity now, the more it won't come. Because
That's so true.
because and I think the simple reason lies in kind of like you're focusing on the wrong thing. You're
Mm.
focusing on like I need creativity now.
Yeah.
Whereas because creativity comes from anywhere and
Yeah.
everything, so it's all about being open
Mm.
and just allowing your mind to kind of like pick up on whatever that kind of like pops up,
Yeah.
and not judging yourself like this is not creativity,
Mm.
this is not an idea that I'll be able to build something upon,
Uh,
because sometimes creative things like they just like I mentioned, they come in all forms. And
yeah.
one easy way I would say is go and look at other people's work,
Mm. Mm-hmm.
so when you start to reference, I find that's always a good starting point,
Mm.
because you are not working from zero. You're
Yeah.
not working from scratch.
Mm-mm.
So if I know, okay, if I need to come up with like ad copy,
Mm.
okay, and I don't know what to write, like
Mhm.
okay, tank is empty.
Mm.
So what I'll do is like okay, in industry A, so like let's go and see like what really good ads have been written like for industry A.
Mhm.
So it's not so much about like you want to piggyback on what
Yeah.
that ad says, but you never know what's going to spin off from you
Yes.
like really like looking and deep diving into that ad.
Mm-mm.
Right? So I find that when you do that, you are going like one step, like getting closer to that point of like, oh, I eventually know what I'm gonna write, or like, oh,
Mm.
I like okay, I feel like the brain juices are flowing now.
Yeah.
So it's very individual, but like in terms of creativity, like I think everybody has their own ways of like when like if you're stressed or whatever, like you go and some people go for a run, some people stretch, some people read,
Yeah.
some people like for me, like I like to take cold showers.
Okay.
Yeah, because like I feel it like wakes me up and
Mhm.
like oh like okay, like I'm ready to go and like right now.
Mm-mm.
So yeah, I think everybody goes about their own way, but creativity really comes from anywhere. And the more we yeah, I mean just ending it on that note that like the more we try to force it,
Yes.
it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
And we need to be quite mindful about that, because it happens to all of us. It's human nature that when we don't get something that we want and we really want it to happen, we're going to focus it on it so much, but we're not focusing on like just noticing the small things that are around us that could
Mm.
potentially spark great ideas.
Yeah. Mm-mm. Oh, so it's very like I totally agree with everything you just said, because I feel like creativity for me also, I feel like it does work for everyone. Like it comes when you least expect it. Sometimes like the
That's
more you
right.
force it, like how you say, like it works against you. The more
Yeah.
you try to force
Yeah.
it, you just have to like be calm.
Yeah.
Just like you did, and like some people go for a run, take cold
Yeah.
showers. I personally like how like
What do you do?
I
Yeah.
personally, because I like to romanticize my life.
Oh, okay.
And I find a lot of like how do you say, like, serenity, I guess, in
Mm.
sometimes in being alone. But I
Right.
cannot do it for too long. These
Yeah.
days I can't, like, because there are a lot of things going on in this brain.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
also I just like to go to a bookstore that has a cafe inside,
Ah,
grab a cup
okay.
of coffee. Like, the vibe, I like to soak it in,
Right, right.
like, because I really enjoy looking at really nice things. I enjoy
Okay.
cafe hopping, like, for
Okay,
example.
okay.
It really sparks my
Mm,
creativity,
yeah.
because I like taking pictures. I like going to places that are like, oh, this is the color scheme that I like. I don't even go in depth about, like,
Right,
the
right.
architectural style or anything.
Mm,
I just like looking at really nice things that are
okay.
pleasing to the eyes. And
Yeah,
that's what,
I get what you mean. I get what you mean.
yeah.
Yeah, because it's like I guess it kind of gives your mind and your whole self like a break because it's nice. It's
Yes.
pretty to look at,
Mm-mm.
So people like nice things.
Yeah, people like nice things.
Yeah.
And the more, like, you need to give yourself a break
Oh,
sometimes,
for
right?
sure. For
Yeah.
sure.
Because,
Yeah.
like we said, like, we're talking about how we want to boost our creativity and stuff. Like, the more you overwork it,
Yeah.
the less it works.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things where you kind of some people may view it as counterproductive, like as in, you know how, okay, some people they stay very long in the office, they stay
Mm.
until at night, and
Mm.
they view it as like hardworking, like them being hardworking. But if you're truly like productive, you can come into work when you're supposed to come into work, leave at work when you're supposed to leave work,
Mhm.
and get whatever it is done. So I
Yeah.
find that it's not in the grind. It's so it's so important to take care of ourselves, to be honest.
Yeah.
Like making sure that we eat well, sleep enough,
Mm-mm.
and because otherwise, like, you're not gonna be able to give your best.
Mm.
And when you can't give your best, your clients won't reap the best,
Yeah.
and because they don't, then ultimately it's going to fall back on you, like your reputation, in a sense, like,
Mm-mm.
hey, you didn't do such a good job for us, or so we kind of need to think about it in that way.
Yeah. So, my final question, because, like, if we were to continue this conversation, it is gonna go on for very, very, very long. What piece of advice would you give to anyone who's, like, wanting to go in our direction, like, as a copywriter, maybe freelancing or in-house?
Right. um if to kind of just pick one, I would say, well, and this one is a relatively general one, so I think whether it's freelancing or in-house, I think it could work, is that as cliche as it sounds, like, believe in yourself.
Mm.
Like, um I would say that as writers or creatives in general, you tend to get in your head a lot.
Mm.
And what happens when you get in your head a lot is that you feel fear. You
Mm.
feel fear. And then what fear does is that it paralyzes you. It doesn't let you take any action.
Mm.
You would just end up like frozen and you're not going to do anything. So I would say believe in yourself enough to a point where you take some form of action. Like,
Mm.
apply for that job, send in that pitch, write that essay, like, actually get yourself in motion to do something, because
Mm.
it's very common for people to just like be scared about it and then just not do anything.
Yeah.
So I would say, regardless of whatever roles like you guys are tuning in, whatever that you hope to achieve, just bet on yourself. Give yourself a chance, because nobody has counted you out except you. So make sure that you really believe in yourself, because I believe in you.
Oh, I love that we're ending on that note. Oh, and
Yeah.
it's so important for us to, like, you in the end you only have yourself. So
Yeah,
you should be your
totally.
biggest supporter, right?
Biggest cheerleader.
Yes. We love that. So, I love that we ended on that note. So thank you so much for joining us, for being here, and for, sharing all of your incredible insights. I personally had a really great time, and
Me
this is
too,
a
me
great
too.
conversation.
Yes, for
We need to
sure.
meet up for coffee, anytime soon.
Yeah.
Probably. I would love that. Whenever both our tanks are filled.
Yes.
And
Right.
thank you so much to our listeners for tuning in. Now, we hope that you also learned something from this conversation that we just had today. We hope you leave or like you click out of this feeling refreshed and inspired. So be sure to subscribe to IQI Global's YouTube channel. You can watch the full podcast on YouTube, and also you can listen to it on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and also Google Podcasts. So we shall see you in the next CXO episode, the CXO Real Talk Breakfast Show. So until then, bye.